live on. Oh, maybe now we're live. I'm not really sure. We'll be live real shortly if we're not yet.
It's cool. We might have an unexpected visitor. He might come up. Who knows? I hope not.
Oh, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
He doesn't read the books. He doesn't belong on here.
Yeah. At least he's cute though.
He's a cute kid, man. He had to go to preschool orientation today, and I felt bummed because this little girl walked up to him and was like, "Will you play with me?" And he was just like, "No." Like, holy shit, man! Like, it's cold
Oh,
blooded.
what a dick.
He's hard to he's hard to get along with sometimes. I think So hopefully school's good.
Yeah. Well, time will tell.
Time will tell.
But I don't know. Anything else new in the world of Josh?
In my world, no. Um, just trying to figure out stuff for get Valiant 100. We
Yeah.
can't get anything yet, but I've been working on some stuff behind the scenes, trying to see what we can do, what we can pull off, what's capable of Eric and I. So,
Yeah.
just so you guys know, we can't tell you anything, but we're working on some stuff. We want to make it like an entertaining episode.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see what happens with it.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I mean, when is an episode of us not just a barrel of
exactly.
laughs?
I feel like we're pretty entertaining guys. We're pretty and entertaining. Okay, I don't
Yeah,
mean to sound like it's just one. We're the total package here.
double threat.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, no, I mean, I don't think that there's really a whole lot going on, Valiant wise right now. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the end of Harbinger Wars 2, which obviously we'll be talking about issue 4.
Yeah.
Um, and oh, Jason Falter is going to dress up as a Harbinger Wars 2 retcon for episode 100.
Are you coming on, Jason?
Yeah, let's make it happen. Let's bring some people on. We'll have to try to bring some people
Oh
on.
yeah, we're gonna bring on 100 other people.
100 other
98,
people.
98 other people. We're the craziest fucking podcast.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't go crazy and do 100 people.
That's right.
Just 98. But I don't know. We'll talk about Harbinger Wars 2 when we get to it. But I mean, Valiant posted some stuff about them visiting comic shops, which I thought was cool. I didn't really look into it too deeply personally.
You know what's stupid about that whole thing? And this is stupid on my part, not Valiant's part. So on Twitter, I saw this announcement, Valiant visits, and I was like, oh man, I'd so loved if they come to Utah. And if I would have clicked on the fucking link, it would have shown that they're coming to Utah next week to all the shops. In my neighborhood, it's a really weird spot that I live in because within a mile in opposite directions are comic shops. Black Hat Comics, Dr. Volt Comics. I like them both. Valiant is supposedly going to be at both of those shops somehow. So I need to kind of figure out like what I can do to get in contact with Valiant, see if I can meet up with anybody. Just because you never know, like how good it can be for us to network with them, or if they can help us get interviews or things like that. I just like to reach out to those guys all the time, anyways. It is, but yeah, I was really surprised, because Utah is one of those places that they don't come. But one thing I noticed about their map, this is just me, and I actually meant to post this picture on our Facebook page, Get Valiant. Um, so they're doing all these stops on the West Coast, okay, and they're doing all these stops on the East Coast, and then in the middle of America, there's no stops. So I guess that must be like where Valiant sells like its bread and butter of books, like its big number of like, titles get sold right there, because like they don't need to work in the farmland, you know. But like
Yeah,
everything is on the West Coast. Like the only thing that's like the farthest away from the coast is Salt Lake City, Utah, like where I'm at.
yeah.
So I just thought that was a really odd thing, and I kept thinking like, yeah, they must sell real well here. Then they don't need to sell. That's why they're coming to Utah because like I know one Valiant fan, and I don't know if you've seen this person pop up. His name is Jonathan Hall. He showed up on our Facebook page a while back, and he's on the Valiant Comics fan page. Really nice kid. I've actually ran into him a bunch of times. Seems to really like the characters. But yeah, it's just weird, like I didn't even think anything about it when I saw the link on Facebook, like, or on Twitter, like, yeah, you guys should come to Utah. They responded to me and were like, hey, asshole, like, we're gonna come to your neck of the woods. They didn't say it like that, but I felt like that's what they were saying. You know, like, come on, dude, do you read? Do you even click on links? Come on, click on this link, man. So I
You
did
should have
email
told him
them.
to come to Minnesota, is what you should have done.
I should have been like, hey, man, Eric needs you to come to Minnesota. You can also hang out with Elliot. So two for
Yeah.
one right there.
Yeah, obviously I would be the top on that list. Clearly, I mean, of importance to Valiant, it would obviously go me and then Elliot, their writer who's
You're both. Hey, first off, you're both writers. You know, you both get to be writers.
yeah,
Uh,
not for Valiant though.
Not yet. Who knows, man? Anyway, I'm just saying it was pretty shocking though, and I emailed Valiant on it just to see if I could get a little bit more information about what they're doing. You know, we'll see if they respond. I was. I sent a message to someone from Valiant on Facebook. I'm still waiting for a response. That was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, they're communication.
Yeah,
It's
but
important.
you know what though? When I was still on Valiant Comic Fans, I had made a comment about how I never got responses back through email. I get responses back through email all the time now. So I feel like whatever lapse they had at that moment was temporary. So that's okay. And Valiant's always really good about responding on Twitter to people, I feel. So like their social media group or their social media team works really well, I think.
Well, yeah, I don't interact with them very much, so I don't know.
Well,
Um
there's really not much else though. I mean,
I'm trying to think, man, and I don't know how we want to. Do we want to go through EXO and then jump into Harbinger Wars 2?
let's do that.
Um, I don't know how much there's to say about EXO. For anybody listening, we haven't been doing this in a while, but uh, we are going to talk spoilers. We haven't really been giving warnings, but figured we would.
Sorry if we've spoiled anything for you and you didn't know what we do.
Yeah.
If we gave you the non-spoilery thing of this, it would just be the review. Like it would just be like our rating, I think.
um, oh, Jason's got a good idea because I mean he's right. Valiant fandom is really passionate, and he's saying Valiant should take fan submissions for one shots, and that way, like writer and artist fans would be able to do things. I think it'd be cool if they did anthologies like that. Anthologies is something that Sean Hayes had brought up a while ago, and I think that's an amazing idea.
Was he
And
the one
whether
that brought it up on Valiant Comic Fans?
I
I
think
remember
he is, yeah,
somebody brought it up on Valiant Comic Fans, and it was one of the very few moments where I felt like everybody was like, "Yes." Like everybody, like
yeah,
it was just like in total agreement. And then Dinesh, this is how long ago the idea was. Dinesh came in and was like, "No, it's just not like a feasible thing to do." But I do agree, though. It would be nice if Valiant was to because I feel like Valiant does listen to the fan community a lot. Even like right now, where like it's a change in the whole team and everything like that. I still feel like they're listening to people. It would be kind of a cool thing if they're like, "Hey, pitch us 4 ideas. We'll find people that have them, or maybe we have the scripts for them." So you do. Like to me, like I would always be like, "Hey, Armorines, we haven't seen anything with those dudes. Like twice, maybe. Let's see what those
yeah,
guys are. Give me a one shot of them."
sure.
You
Or
know,
little anthology stories, like
comma.
do like a monthly book that has four little stories in it. You know what I mean? So, or something like that, three, four little stories, and then those are serialized over several. Like, yeah,
Even if you don't do it monthly, give it to me quarterly, but make it like a little bit bigger, like a
yeah.
64-page book, but like every 3 months. Like
I,
something that's
I'm,
cool. I mean, you never know like where like that thing that's gonna like take off or like Valiant, comes from. Maybe it's not gonna be a monthly book, maybe it's something like that. But I don't know. I feel like that's kind of the problem is like there's so many things you could think about doing. I think like I look at like what other publishers do and like Alterna does a thing called it comes out on Wednesday, and it's like a big thick book. Comes out like for like $1.50, but like I don't think their numbers are as good as like what Valiant does. But still, like I think they show that it could happen, and they're doing a book based upon like people that probably no one's heard of. So I feel like at least with Valiant, they have established characters, people are like, oh yeah, like I know who those characters are. I pick that up, but who knows? I do. I've always loved the idea of the anthology, and if Sean was the one that came up with that, Sean deserves like a lot of credit for that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea. Um, Anyway, I suppose we can actually get into EXO. So it's issue number 18. I think this La Rosa cover is just the A cover.
It's yeah. I didn't pick up books this week because it's been kind of a hectic week, but I can tell you right now, the cover of that I love. It looks so good. And giant thing that bums me out. I was really hoping that at the end of this issue, EXO would shave off his fucking facial hair. Because the cover, he's back to like no facial hair. I was like, yes, we're finally getting back to like a clean shaven EXO Man of War, not this hippie that's infiltrated.
EXO Hippie War.
That's right. That would be
EXO
a
Mano Hippie. Man of
no.
Hippie.
EXO Hippie War. He goes out. He goes back to the 1960s via the Time Walker. Wages war at Woodstock. I love it. Pitch that idea, somebody.
Yeah, that'll be a great story. Um, but yeah, so it is obviously a time displaced story. I mean, it happens way in the past. Um, I think what's nice, the best thing about this, and this is obviously the biggest spoiler because it's the very end of the book, but the best thing about this is that it makes this story relevant to the current continuity by saying that Sabas is still alive.
Yeah, there's something
And
special about this dude.
yeah, he's like telling the future, reading tarot cards and whatever. And Capshaw is going to him because she doesn't know what to do and all that kind of stuff. What I do want to say is I don't know, but my takeaway, my just pure speculation from our conversation with Elliot, uh, he was talking about all this stuff about where Capshaw is at. And then this issue and Harbinger Wars 2 number 4 both show us that that's exactly where Capshaw is. And it makes me really hopeful that we are going to get a Unity book. Uh, yeah. Woo! That was fun.
Gesundheit. So yeah, like I mean, like that. It's total speculation by both of us. But I think like if you were gonna do a big super team book coming out of an event, this would be that time to do it. Not too much of going into like Harbinger Wars 2 yet. We're just talking the events of XO4, but just looking at how this book ends, and obviously like we'll get to it in a minute, like some shit that happens in the back of that book, but it just seems like the way that the country is at right now, you've had someone who has taken over like the electrical power of the country and shut everything down for 4 issues at least. Now would be the time to get some big guns together, formulate a team. Who's going to be your team that's going to take down like those kind of global threats like that? You would
Yeah.
think coming out of an event like this, that would be what happens. And who's to say that we don't see something like that next year? Valiant just they do move a little slow on things. They only have like 6, 7 books that come out a month. So yeah, like my favorite thing about this book is Savas. Like Savas has been like the coolest thing of this entire storyline. He seems like such an interesting character. I didn't expect to see him at the end of the book, for one.
Yeah. No, I
So
totally didn't either.
and I kept thinking like because I haven't had the time to really go back and read anything. So I've been like, did I miss something? Like where this dude is like was he like on like the fucking Vine ship? Or something? Like, did I just miss like a note in any issue of Exo Manowar in the last 6 years where like this dude is a little more than meets the eye?
Like had something to do with anything.
Yeah, because like even like David Camp, he was put in like Divinity way back in the very first issue of Divinity, and what he is doesn't pay off until Eternity 3 or 4. So
Yeah.
like it's a fucking long game there. It's done really well by Matt Kent. And so like with this, I was like, oh, did Kent do another one of these characters? I haven't had a chance to read through everything again. So I don't know if there's like something I missed. And maybe I did. Maybe it's just like one of those things where they just haven't explained it yet. That's okay too. And it's okay because I liked it so much. I don't know if I would have hated the character, I probably would have been like, how does this work? Like this doesn't make any sense. I really like the character. I think he's really interesting. I don't know if like maybe he's got something to do with like eternity. and all that kind of stuff. Like if he's because I mean he's obviously still alive after like 1600 years or whatever. But I did like him. I also like the fact that in this issue, whenever they had fights, it seemed like Arik attacking people was like spears in the face and shit like
Yeah,
that. Whenever he like killed someone, it
brutal.
was like fucking brutal.
Yeah, yeah, that was super badass. Um, yeah, no, I like that this story is it was tied into what's happening in the present just because it was like the armor reminding Arik of something that happened in the past. But then the fact that when we do get back to the present, Sabas is there and he's involved. He's talking. He's enough of a player to be talking to Capshaw. For Capshaw to go to him to know who he is. So, I mean, that to me says something about his standing in the Valiant universe. Sean Hayes is asking if he's Divinity Junior, but I don't think so. I mean, he does look a little bit like Divinity, being that he's being drawn by Trevor Harrison and he has a mohawk. So I think that's a big thing there. But
Yeah, that would be a crazy twist, like just because he does pop up in the past, and we've already got a character from the past who's in the present time in Arik. If that was by chance, like something like I still think it's gonna be something tied in with Divinity, maybe not his child, but that's interesting. That's a good theory.
I think that I don't know. I'm gonna guess no, but yeah,
Man,
we'll
let's get this
see.
Obus one shot. Someone should ask Valiant to get that thing out so we know who the hell he is.
Sabas Zero.
Yep, Sabus Zero.
Yeah, I would read that. I would totally read that.
Hey, I have a
Um,
question. And going back to things that I might have missed, where the fuck did the water come from in this issue? Like, is there a dam somewhere that broke, or like a water reservoir or something that I missed that they alluded to? Because all of a sudden there's just like boats in the arena.
sure,
But
the way
I'm
that the way that boats, go into the arena and stuff.
no, I'm just asking. Like, did I miss something, or they just magically
No, I
appear out?
mean boats, I mean like, how like you're hanging out on land and then like a bunch of water shows up with some boats in it.
Because when I read the issue, I kept thinking like, where did they come from? They're in like a fucking arena. Like, where would these have come from? How would water have gotten to where they're at and pushed these like sailors or these guys armed on boats to try to kill them?
It's just, one of those things, man.
Are you just fucking with me and I just missed a page? Or like
When's the last time that's happened to you?
last last week, the week before, the week before that?
Yeah, when you were like hanging out in the mall and then all of a sudden like a ship busts down the door because it's suddenly there's water everywhere. Like, I don't know.
I'm just saying that I was like a little confused on that, where I was like, I don't know where this came from. And I know that Sabas has had like this weird ability of like almost like everything works out for him. And so I was like, well, how does this work out? Like normally, like someone slips and falls on his spear or falls out of a boat or something. Like he's had things that are like logical that have happened to benefit him, and this benefited him and Arik. But at the same time, I was like, what caused this? I don't see what the cause of this happened. So to me, it was a little bit like stretched out where I don't really see how it happens.
Yeah, it didn't explain it in the issue for sure. It's just
Okay.
like suddenly there's water.
Yeah.
Um, it was pretty ridiculous. I don't know what else to. Yeah, I mean, other than that weird thing, maybe the last issue referenced something that was going to be happening.
I don't remember that because Arik crawled out of the sewer. He went through the water and then he went up and then he got captured and in his cell with Sabas. And Sabas explained that he was gonna fight someone in like the gladiatorial pit, and the guy slipped and fell on his spear, and then they're both gonna have to go out there. And maybe I missed something. Maybe there's something I'm missing there, but I don't think that it explains it.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
it might be one of those things that when they finally explain what the deal is with Sabas, there'll be a clearer understanding of like how that happened. So
Um,
there's a part of me that because of like how the character kind of plays off in the story, I don't want to ding the story for that part. because he's rather interesting. Because things always do work out for him. I just want to know like more about him. It's hard. So for me, I'm like, I don't want to ding the story because of that, but it doesn't make any sense. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it. I just kind of rolled with it when I was reading it because it's like,
Yeah.
I guess this is happening, you know?
It's Matt Kent.
Um,
Everything's at least good that he does. You know, pretty much.
yeah. Um, I don't know. I thought that this arc is still my favorite arc of the XO book so far. Um, I didn't really enjoy a lot of the stuff on Planet Gorin. I'm glad that we're getting him back on Earth, even if it is in a flashback. I'm happier to have Arik back on Earth. And then finally, as Jason was talking about earlier, he's, ready for armored up EXO, and I know you are too, Josh, and I'm sure pretty much every EXO fan is ready for him to actually, face some big threats in the armor and see what he can do. We got more of that in Harbinger Wars 2 this issue than we did the whole arc of this Barbarians story. So yeah, I mean, it will be nice when we get to the next arc. But I think for this arc, I think it's well written. The art is good, Trevor Harrison art, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the future. Now that Harbinger Wars 2 is done, and we have found out that Sabas is probably going to be a player in Arc's story moving forward, it's going to be really interesting to see, and knowing that these Eternity/Divinity characters are coming in. I think that there are a lot of things in motion right now that are going to be really interesting to see, how they all play out.
You know, one thing I wanted to say, like, I'm trying to think who had told me this, and they're like, what you guys should do is like, you should talk about the covers that you like the most, okay? And the only cover I really liked on this was LaRosa's cover because I felt like at the very least his cover looked like it actually pertained to the issue. A lot of the variants that came with this book didn't look like they really have anything to do with this book, and one of them just showed like Arik facing down like some giant green monster, and I just like think when I see that shit, that doesn't even happen. Like, don't give us covers where like the thing you see literally doesn't happen. Now you can make up the excuse too that Arik being in the armor doesn't ever happen in this story arc, but
Yeah.
one thing I do want to say about this story, which is going to be me like kind of eating my own words a bit. When this one was announced, I was just really against it. I didn't want to read 4 issues of Arik as Arik, set in the past, set back in his heyday prior to the Vine invading Earth and kidnapping him. I didn't like the first issue at all. But I've actually liked the storyline. And even though I think like a lot of us would rather have seen something that tied in a little bit more with what's going on in Harbinger Wars 2, or at least within like present day Earth, maybe even like more of like Arik actually in the armor. This storyline is pretty good. And I know that like this storyline has gotten kind of beat up a little bit online where people are just like, come on, we don't want to see Arik in the past for 4 issues while the events that are going on right now in the universe, as major as they are, this story doesn't seem that relevant. But I was really shocked with this one. I really did enjoy. I didn't really enjoy one, but I feel like if I was to go back and read it, I'd like it a lot more. And I don't know. I mean, that's just me, I guess, saying like I could have been wrong. People can be wrong sometimes with like how they feel about books. You can go back and read something again and really enjoy something. So I think like on this issue, I would give this a 4 for this issue. I thought it was a pretty solid issue. I do think that like sometimes with Harrison's art, like people look like people from other books, where you're like, oh, he's drawn that character. It looks just like you know people from like Divinity. But I thought as far as like the storyline went, I thought Matt Kent did a great job on this, and it really ended up being quite interesting, especially because like Sabas and as mysterious as he is, we have no idea what is going on with him really. I liked it.
Yeah. I think that this is a good book. I've been looking at the covers while you've been talking because
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea for us to talk about the covers. I really like the La Rosa cover, and the Renato Gaitis cover just looks
Oh,
like what you expect from him. Hyper detailed, Um, it looks like 3D modeling. It looks like he's modeling these characters in 3D and then adding texture and light sources.
I know, like, a nice idea I think for Valiant to do, and this might have happened. I don't have every single pre-order edition, so if I could be wrong, but a pre-order bit of content where it shows like what the process is for Renato Gatus's art would be
Yeah,
incredible because his
yeah,
art is just. I think I was saying it last week where like I probably wouldn't have liked it back in the '90s when I used to read like Vertigo because I feel like a lot of books used to have that kind of style, but his art just looks phenomenal like in a superhero book with these characters. I love how it looks. Pages are beautiful. So I'd love to know how it's done.
I also really like the really colorful cover. I don't apparently it's an interlocking variant, but I never saw any of the other variants because I don't pay attention to the covers that much. Um, but it's a super cool, really colorful cover with art kind of like going to Earth, I guess. And apparently it's by Veronica Fish. So I really like that one. So this issue has a lot of good covers. I'm just
Fish.
not at the other. Hmm?
I believe that Veronica Fish was, I think, the artist on that Blackwood book that's coming out from Dark Horse Comics right now.
Oh, I have no idea.
I read the first issue; it was really good, and I have the
Um,
others that come out.
I'm not a big fan of Jim Mafood's style, so I just didn't enjoy his cover because I'm not a fan of his style. If you like his style, you will probably like that cover. I mean, it looks like it's, well done in terms of his style. It's just not something that appeals to me.
I don't like
Um,
any of his covers that he's done for Valiant.
yeah, I'm not a big fan. It's just a stylistic thing, you
Yeah,
know. But yeah, for me, this issue, I think that it's a strong end to what's been a really good story. I'm probably going to be right with you at a 4. It's not, like the greatest thing ever, but I do think that this has been a really strong arc. And this is a really interesting issue that lays a lot of groundwork for what could be to come and opens a lot of doors. So it gives us a lot of questions, and as long as we get answers to those questions, that's a good thing.
I agree. It'll
um,
be, it'll be a good one to reread when the trade comes out.
yeah, I agree with that. So then the other book to talk about is Harbinger Wars 2, number 4. I think I've also got the um, A cover on this.
I love it. Looks great.
Yeah, I do think that it's a really nice cover. Um,
I think the pre-order cover. I'm trying to think what it was, but it's Kari Evans. I just thought it looked like shit, personally.
I'm trying to pull up all the covers for this. I just got to get to the
But I
right.
want to say there was a Massafera cover on issue 4, if I'm not mistaken, and it looked awesome. I think it was like Bloodshot.
So that cover that I have, well, of course I opened the wrong one. That cover that I have is the A cover by J.G. Jones. I really like it. I think it's a really cool cover. I wouldn't mind seeing more from him. I don't know how many covers or if he's done any pages or anything. I don't recognize the name.
So one thing about J.G. Jones, and I might be mistaken, is that in the last week he came out and confessed on like Facebook or something that he's got like some kind of illness, and he's probably not going to be doing a lot of work anymore for a long
Damn.
for a while. He's got something going on, and I didn't get a chance to read through it at the time, like what might have been going on with him. But uh, it sounds like something he can come back from. So it just sounds like a lot of the work that he wants to do is just getting put on hold. He might only be doing covers or a few things like that here and there, if he can.
Okay.
But he's
Well,
a great artist. His
yeah,
covers look great.
yeah, I completely agree. Um, that sucks. That really sucks to hear. So
Yeah,
hopefully, yeah, hopefully he gets well soon and can continue to, enjoy his life and give us awesome artwork.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I really do like his cover a lot. Um, and then there's a Miko Sawayan cover. I mean, it's Livewire floating behind EXO, and EXO is like all beat up or whatever, and it's
I
it
liked all the covers except for the pre-order one.
um which one was the pre-order one?
It's like Major Palmer fighting somebody. It just doesn't look very good. Major Palmer looks like he's like 300 years old.
Oh, okay. I know they've got the Juan Jose Reap interlocking covers. That one looks really good.
Yeah,
The Felipe Massafera Bloodshot cover looks really cool.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean all these covers that I'm seeing, I don't see the pre-order one, but all the ones that I am seeing look really awesome.
You're probably best off that way.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. But no, I mean, especially that Miko Sawaiian cover. I mean, it's so good, so good. Um,
And I don't. And real quick on the covers, I don't think Felipe Massafera, if that's how his name is pronounced, I don't think he's done a bad cover yet for Valiant. I mean, his covers look so great. The bummer is that they're always like 1 in 50s. So I think Valiant's smart. They know that like people will want those covers. They make them like the top cover to get. It stinks for like a person like me who's not getting the variants on this book. I don't give a lot of variants for any of the newer books, but damn, his artwork is so good to look at. Shit.
yeah. Sorry, Jason really doesn't want to talk about Harbinger Wars 2, and I'm reading his comments in the live chat.
Well, we've got to
Uh,
talk about it.
yeah, we got to talk about it. And Sean clearly wasn't a fan either. Jason wants to talk about Ninja K instead. The next one does look really good, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But we do need to talk about Harbinger Wars 2, issue
Yeah.
number 4.
If you guys plug your ears, you don't have to hear what me and Eric have to say about it.
Yeah, if you need to, go ahead.
Put one of
I
these to
think
your eyes so you don't see our lips either.
um I think that the art in here is awesome. Tomascherello does more Tomascherello. It has been pointed out that Peter didn't look very Peter-like, but I think that's been true the whole time Tomascherello has been drawing him. I'm not a huge fan of his rendition of Peter, but that's just how he draws him, I guess.
His
And
Peter looks like Peter has been working out, hitting the gym. Like
yeah, somebody said, was it Chris Evans? Looks like Chris Evans is playing him or something.
yeah, like
Um,
to me, like Pete should be kind of like he should be a kind of scrawny like kid, not like not very built or anything like that. But I mean, like it's superhero comics. Everybody's got like muscles and shit. Like it's just that's one of those like things that just happens in comics. But I do agree with that though. I mean, like he just doesn't look like Pete.
He looked
But
better in Harbinger Renegade. I wasn't a huge fan of Derek Robertson's art on that, but I think that he did draw Pete well.
yeah,
Um, but okay, so I don't know, man. Like Livewire looks amazing in this book. I think that's who Tomas Girello draws the best. I would love to see him do a Livewire book.
dude, the pages were like she makes like that metal like bot like her like mech that she's in. Oh my god, those pages are just incredible. That
Here's
are
the
all the pages
conclusion.
with EXO versus Livewire look great.
Okay, so here's the conclusion that I came to on Harbinger Wars 2. I know that everybody wanted this to be like the first Harbinger Wars was, and it was kind of we were told that it was going to be more like the first Harbinger Wars was, where it was tied into everything and everything had a part in it, and all these crazy different storylines would get intertwined and resolved and pushed into new directions and all this crazy stuff. And I understand that for people who went into this expecting and kind of demanding that, I understand why they're disappointed. But for me, if you read this as just another comic book, big event with all the characters or a bunch of characters, I think it's a really good book from that perspective. So it really just depends on how you look at it. Like if you only want to look at it from the one perspective, I disagree with you. And I'm sorry if like you find it insulting or anything, but I disagree with that perspective. And you have every right to have your opinion, but I'm just saying, like, for me, I'm willing to say, okay, it doesn't really hold up under that light, but I can still enjoy it from a different perspective and look at it as being more of a fluff piece and how big and badass it is. We got so much badass shit with Bloodshot. We got Livewire being a total badass. We got all this crazy shit with Exo, Ninjak and fucking fights Palmer, and like the whole thing is so fucking crazy. And to me, like from that perspective, from an action fluff, looking at it that way, I think it's awesome.
One thing I do want to give this book. I mean, there's a couple things I want to say about that I think are actually really good. One thing I think though is that this book it had a slow beginning. The first issue is a bit slow, but this book has been action pretty much the whole time. And you've had like the action between like Exo Manowar and Livewire, and we had Pete versus Exo. We've had Ninjak getting involved. There's been a lot of like really cool stuff. And I think like as far as like the art goes, it's great. I think there's a couple problems that I have with it, and they're not necessarily bad. It's just that I think that maybe when this story was conceived, Valiant had an idea of where they were going to go with it, and I don't think they're going to go with it necessarily like the way that they probably wanted to at one time. You know, like it feels like to me with the way this is written at the end, like there's more on the horizon for the Renegades. Hopefully sooner than later, but it's going to be later because there's no plans for a Harbinger book as far as any of us know. And really the Renegades played like zero part in this entire book. The secret weapons played like zero part in this event. It really was like Bloodshot, Livewire, Exo, Ninjak, and Palmer. It was still fun. Like I'm not gonna like lie, I had a lot of fun reading this book. There's a lot of like fun moments in here, but I do think like if you're looking at like the book that's gonna push the Valiant universe and launch all these books or launch any books, we're probably not gonna get much out of it. Depending, except for I do think that like this book, this series, in fact, really does establish Livewire as like top of the pecking order as far as like people. Like she holds her own against Exo Manowar. Exo Manowar is the guy that we're supposed to think is like the baddest guy there is. And what really like is the limit of her powers? Like she's able to project memories into Shanhara now.
Yeah.
I mean, like I feel like Livewire is almost like overpowered. If she can do stuff like that, I mean, I'm sure like people are like, we could do all sorts of stuff with her if she's able to do that. She just seems like she wields like Omega, almost like Omega level Psyop power. Not quite that, but you could argue it though now if she's able to knock out the power grid in the United States.
In that much time, and if
Yeah.
she's able to, yeah, like transmit memories, if she's able to, like, what was the issue where, was it Exo met her in the forest, or Ninjak met her in
One or
who?
two. Issue
Somebody
two.
met her in the forest.
Where she meets Exo.
Okay, yeah. And she's like, dude, my power is just as strong here as it is anywhere. And that to me is what makes her like the baddest of the bad. Because if she can go, to somewhere completely organic with no electricity and still has her technopath abilities in full force, then yeah, there's really no touching her.
I think for some people, and I would be one of these people who would totally admit this too. If you read the Prelude issue written by Heiserer, you would feel like there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe involving certain characters and things like that with this event. And that in that sense, you would be disappointed if you're like, well, where the hell are the secret weapons? Like where are Livewire's kids, so to say, to refer to them as that. Where are they? But at the same time, though, like kind of looking at like how much I didn't like the first issue, I've had a lot of fun reading this, man. Like comics can be fun. This does end up being like Valiant Civil War. It really does come off like Valiant Civil War. This is fucking Iron Man versus Captain America. You know, except Iron Man wins this fight. So it wasn't that bad. I think like a lot of people who I've heard complain about, like they're valid. They have valid complaints. Everybody's view is valid, and it's definitely not the same series as like the first Harbinger Wars. But I don't want it to like just rehash like the same event. I'm
Yeah.
okay with using the name, but I wouldn't want them to necessarily give me that same thing in that same vein. It's got to be different because if you just had the same event, like just a slight bit change, how good would that even be? But I do think that there's some things that could have changed. It seems like the roadmap to get to where we were involved a lot of other pieces that didn't make it. We never saw the alpha,
Yeah.
which it seemed like
All
that.
the any of the Renegade stuff, Solomon, Alpha, any
Yeah,
of it.
it seemed like they really wanted to go that route with it, and then it just disappeared. But I think I'm actually going to give some credit to Valiant on this because it sounds like when Dinesh was gone, Heiser was done. They probably had to rush this thing out. It really does feel like that to me, and it seems like that's been some of the rumor, and some people don't think that, but whatever the case may be, I think for Kent having to like basically pick up this entire thing and do the whole thing, which originally he was going to do half, Heiser was going to do half. There were going to be like two sides of the story. I think, given the credit there, I think Kent pulled this off. It's a good story. It's not great. I don't think it's great, but I think it's a solid story. I'd reread it again. I would reread this again just for like I think some of the cool moments that I got to witness in this, like Pete against EXO.
Dude, I would reread this just for Gargoyle Bloodshot, man.
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that Gargoyle Bloodshot, who obviously now we know was, you know, Livewire did control him.
100%. I mean, we knew before, but yeah, it
Yeah,
was
but it got
confirmed.
confirmed in this. Also, like Ninjak just being like awesome Ninjak, talking shit to Palmer pretty much the whole time. Being the guy though who ultimately kind of stops Pete, which is neat because Ninjak should be kind of like that guy who's like the human element who is pushed to like peak condition, who can do those kind of things, shut his mind off, if you will, or whatever. I love seeing Ninja. Take that back. I love seeing Livewire and EXO fight. I thought those pages were incredible, and I thought that the way that this wrapped up with like kind of like a funny nod to like the X-Men, were like face like we got to open a school for like gifted kids, and
Yeah.
I can't remember which character it was right now, but they're like that only works in comic books. The government would be on you so fast, you know. Quark wasn't even that annoying at the end of this either, but it would have been great. It would have been really great to see them more involved because really, like the only real involvement was like Pete. Pete was the only one who actually ever did anything in this whole series. So I don't know. I don't think it was as bad. Like I think after the first issue, I didn't think it would be great. It's been pretty good actually. It's been fun, and I was entertained. And I can definitely say, thinking on the fact that I've spent like $16 on these 4 issues, I felt like I got my money's worth because I enjoyed myself reading it.
Yeah. So here's what Jason and Sean are talking about in the live chat right now. They're talking about you know, Livewire being taken too far in this story.
Possibly,
And
possibly though, because she's probably killed like hundreds, maybe thousands of people.
well, Sean was saying, like, yeah, how many people were in surgery, newborn babies. She basically attacked the entire population, the civilian population. And Jason's like the IT guys on the Love Boat just wanted to go to work, do their job, and then go play some Xbox after work. And then Livewire decided they're enemy combatants.
Hey man,
Um,
how many guys were fixing toilets on the Death Star? I'm just saying, they knew what they signed
yeah,
up for.
right. And
Babies and people on life support and stuff like that. Like
Sean
that's
is
not.
saying
But
Sean's saying
people,
that even Harada didn't do that, but Harada was definitely ready to kill hundreds of thousands of innocent
hey,
people.
how many heads did Harada pop though that we don't even know about? Like Harada is like a guy who's looking to take over the world. Like I
Yeah,
think that
Harada has done way worse than what Livewire did, and would do way worse given the opportunity.
I feel like though, like this is one of those little things though, like one of these events where you kind of see like the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree though. Like Harada is ultimately worse, but you can tell that like Livewire learned it from somewhere. You
Yeah.
know, like to take an extreme moment and push it further. I feel like that's what Harada would do. I feel like that's like the MO, and I think that's what she did. That's what she learned to do. She was like the person under Toyo. So
Here's my perspective. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're okay.
Um, my perspective on the whole thing is that Livewire was put in a position where she felt like that the government and all their agencies were declaring war on her, and they were threatening her and the people she was trying to protect, and so she felt like the government told her, we're coming after you and the innocent people you're trying to protect. And she said, okay, if you are leaving me with no choice but to retaliate, then I'm coming after you and the innocent people you're trying to protect. And I don't know that you can say that she was definitely justified in what she did. I'm not going to argue that. But I do think that you can say that from her perspective, she felt like she had justification. Now, I think she's going to have to deal with the fallout, and that's reading in the interview that I read, the partial interview I read with Vita Ayala. Obviously, Livewire in her upcoming series is going to have to deal with that.
Well,
Um,
and if you think about it, we still have one more issue. We have the aftermath issue. I'm really curious to see like where that goes because I do think that you can't just let her off scot free. I mean, yeah, like she felt total justification in all the things that she did, but like, yeah, there's a lot of life at stake here that just perished. There's billions upon billions of dollars damaged, to the entire like power grid, to Gate. Gate is like hosed at this point. The love boat is not going up anytime soon. Um, so here's what we were talking about. Like I think like if you look at how this book ends with Gate a little bit in shambles. I mean, their main base operations is destroyed. It almost seems like this would be where Capshaw would be like, okay, here's the events that rolled out for us. We need a team that can match a person like Livewire in case there's a threat. But I don't think you get Ninjak. You probably wouldn't get Exo because at the end of this book, Exo's like, I'll help you, right these wrongs. I'll help you find these people that pushed you to this way. So it almost begs the question that even if you did create a Unity team, who would they be? Like, who would be this like government sanctioned superhero team that would, you know, take response when these kind of situations happen? Because it feels like if you look at the team that was there before, they probably none of them would really stand against them now. Like Exo and Ninjak. Maybe Galad would be like still loyal, but
we got to find out what happens to him in the pages of Ninja K. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, Livewire isn't going to be on Unity. It's going to be EXO. That's the only guy, and he's secretly working with Livewire.
yeah.
Um, but okay. So here's the thing in the live chat. There, Jason says they're revolting because
Don't shut the power grid off. God damn it.
yeah. So uh, first off, I want to address one comment by Jason saying that Faith's idea to start a school is like what Harada was doing. Completely, that absolutely not. Harada was forcing people into a situation that may kill them with no regard whatsoever for their
Well,
consent.
and also, I don't think anybody knowingly knows what they were signing up for when they joined up with Harada because I don't think
Right. And
he
he
knew that
forced
like
activation on them, even though he had knew there was a good chance that he was going to kill them. So
I think Faith's comment is just that like she grew up reading comic books. She read the X-Men. That's her whole thing right there. It's just like
yeah, she thinks that
she
she
did what
can
Professor X did, and they're just like,
exactly.
you're fucking crazy, Faith.
Yeah,
So
she's not talking to doing anything like what Harada was doing. So that's number one. Okay. And then they're saying that Harada hasn't killed as many people or done as heinous an act as Livewire
we don't
committed.
know that though. We don't know that because here's the
But
thing.
I'm pretty
Harada,
sure I remember that he did do some shit like that, or he was stopped very, very close of doing some shit like that if he didn't actually pull it off. But that's definitely the kind of stuff that he was doing in the Harbinger book and in the and in the Imperium book. That's what I was trying to say. So totally like Harada was way, way fucking worse than Livewire. And
here,
you know what? I mean, if we all need to go back and reread the entire Dice Art run, we can do that. But I really think because that would be a joy anyway. But I think that yeah, Harada definitely did worse shit.
well, the thing to keep in mind too, Harada's been around since the atomic bomb dropped in Japan. That's when his powers activated. He was a young kid, and even then, he was killing people. People that tried to steal food from him, he would kill them. So Harada's had like 60 years to have done like acts of murder. We don't know everything he's done. Now, within the pages of Harbinger, yeah, a lot of the stuff he did was against PRS. PRS, we know that they're not exactly good people, but they're both kind of like not good people. And Harada ultimately would like run the world if he could. A
Yeah.
lot of what he's working on is to be like the guy who he's going to fix the world, but it's going to be on his terms, his way, and no one else is going to cross him. So, I mean, that's the thing, and maybe in a way though, it's kind of weak that people could be like, oh, here's this moment in Vietnam where he killed like 20,000 people, or here's where he showed up in like the 1980s and just wiped out a whole bunch. In that way, it does kind of cheapen it, where it's like he could have done these things, and then like you're just throwing them out there now just to make him bad. But I feel like, just without knowing any other additional stories, Harada's a guy who we've seen act, in the little bits of his history that we've seen, kill anyone who got in his way. Not afraid, no qualms. So to me, being like, well, Livewire's act might have been a bigger act, but Harada's probably got plenty of blood on his hands. We don't really know how many people even die within this. We don't know what the time frame of the power being out is. Could be a
Well, and
couple.
my whole thing too is like I'm pretty sure the very first arc of Harbinger was about Harada was going to do some crazy shit, and Pete found out about it, and that's why he rebelled. And the other thing was Jason said, Pete was activating people and leaving them to deal with it because, we were talking about what Harada did when he activated people. Pete actually, number one, he knew he could activate them without killing them. Harada knew he couldn't and did it anyway. So Pete knew he could activate them without killing them. And then, as we see, when he activates Tito at the beginning of Harbinger Wars 2, because I pulled up the first issue on my computer, um, when he activates Tito, he talks to him about it and says, you know, the government has your name, it's on this list, and the feds, showed up at your house, took your parents, and if I do activate you, life will never be the same. He warns him and says, they're going to come after you just like they're coming after me. And are you sure you want this? And then Tito says yes. So I mean that shows that when Pete's not just activating people, he's trying to tell them what he knows the situation to be, and then have them come back or make that decision so that then he will only activate them when they've made that decision.
Yeah,
So one, Harada was way worse in that way. Um I know that Jason and Sean are pointing out like uh old people on ventilators, hospitals, all these other planes coming down, whatever, all kinds of different things happen. Yes, it would have been horrible. But again, Harada has never shied away from killing tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people at a time. So acting like what Livewire did was worse, I think I don't think that's true at all. I think that if he
I
thought
think. Go ahead. I'm cutting you
I
off.
think that
Sorry.
if he thought doing what Livewire did in Harbinger Wars 2, if Harada had the ability to do it and he thought that it would serve his ends, he would totally do it.
I agree with that part. The thing that I think is hard to really like grasp at here is like we don't know what any kind of body count is with this. And it's one of those things where I think like maybe Valiant didn't want to put that in the story because if you're like, hey, guess what, man? Because of Livewire, 15,000 people died, plane wrecks, people in helicopters, people doing this thing and that thing, all these things, people with pacemakers and shit. Then you're like, she's irredeemable. She's got 15,000 deaths on her hands. How do you fix that character? Does it become too monumental of a task to even have a writer attempt? You know, so I think like with the way that they did it, where it's like, yeah, we're not going to tell you exactly what happened. Let's just say that like Livewire is responsible for like she's got some blood on her hands. It makes it easier for the next writer to come up and be like, okay, we have to redeem the character. Here's how we're going to do it. We don't have to sit there and be like, well, she killed 15,000 people or 20,000 people.
I
It's
think
just like,
that's exactly what Vita Ayala will be dealing with in the Livewire book. And I
I,
could be wrong.
yeah,
Obviously, I haven't read it, but that's my guess is that's exactly what she's going to be
yeah,
or they will be
I
dealing
can't
with.
imagine that Livewire's ongoing is just going to be like, hey, I'm Livewire. I got me a day job, and at night I'm going to fight crime. Like, no, it's got to be something a little more complex. I hope at least it's something more complex because I feel like at this point you have to do something like that. I don't think there's anything they could do within the space of one issue of the aftermath that just totally puts that character back to like a normal slate, like she was like a year ago. I think there's a lot of baggage here that has to be dealt with. And I think this is going to be one of those things that really, like, for some people, is going to make or break the character for him because some people are always going to be like, what's the bloodshed here? What is the count of like lives lost? And can we look past that with what she's going to do ahead of time. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to see what the story is going to be like.
See,
But
here's the great thing.
I do agree a little bit with those guys because there is a lot of blood on her hands, you know. But
I don't need you teaming up on me.
but is she a character that can't be redeemed? It would be my question.
I don't know, but I don't need you teaming up on me.
Oh, I'm not doing it like that. I'm not trying to be like I see their
Uh-huh.
side.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
trying to attack this as
jumping all over. Um, no, I get what you're saying. I do get where you're coming from. But here's the thing. Okay, so obviously my feelings are Livewire felt justified. I'm not saying that she did the right thing or she did the best thing, right? Like I'm just saying from her perspective, she felt justified. And I think that um
I don't think anybody could argue that though. Really.
right. And what I'm saying is that Harada would have done the same fucking thing, put any kind of similar situation, and he probably would have done it with less provocation than it took for Livewire.
And I agree with
That's
that
my
too.
perception.
I think that like her and Harada aren't that different.
They're basically two peas in a pod right now, and she's going to have a lot of work to do to come back from that. But I think okay, here's what's so awesome about Harbinger Wars 2. Yes, it has its problems. No, it is not perfect. But here's what's great about it. This is one of the best, most in depth conversations that we've been able to have that a story has sparked in a really long time, right? Like we talk about these comics all the time, but this is a book that's getting us to think about, like, you know, how justified was Livewire declaring war on the entire country and putting innocent lives? Or, there are all these conversations that we're having, and I think that that alone makes this a really good comic.
Hey, what did you think of like after like the love boat crashes and you see like a ghost of like nanites swarm and turn into like bloodshot?
I thought that was fucking awesome. He's basically invincible.
That was another thing that reminded me a little bit of Civil War from Marvel, where like in one of the tie-in issues, Wolverine gets burned to the point where he's only got a skeleton, and from just his skeleton, he grows everything back. And it wasn't like that bad, but I was like, it kind of reminded me of that, where like, fuck, man, Bloodshot could take like an incredible amount of damage, just be down to like maybe a couple 100,000 nanites, and then just like start knitting himself back together. It was actually a really cool page of the book because he
Yeah,
doesn't
I
really
thought when he's like, pain
pain your
means
life.
life.
Yeah,
That was awesome. That was super awesome. I thought this story, just for Bloodshot's part alone, is fucking awesome.
yeah. So like ultimately, like my score isn't going to be like super high on this. It's not going to be as high as EXO. I'm going to give this a 3.5 though for this issue. I thought this was all right, man. Like this was fun. I was entertained. Um, I think though, like I guess like if I was the guy who's like, okay, Valiant, here's what you're gonna do. I just feel like the book should spin off and be a little bit different though. Like you'd have something with the Renegades at this point, because I feel like there's obviously a lot going on in the world of Psyops after the events of Harbinger Wars 2. Maybe that's another thing that happens within the pages of um, Livewire's book. Maybe it's something that gets hinted at within the pages of Faith Dreamscape. I don't know. It's not going to come up in Bloodshot Rising Spirit or Incursion, but I do feel like there's an opportunity right here, to get something going with like Harbinger. I feel like they're kind of
Unity.
missing out on doing it, or Unity for that matter too. Launch both of them, make them both polar opposites to one another, set
Yeah.
the point at some point. But that's what I would like to see though. Is like those kind of books happen. We're just not going to get them, and it's kind of disappointing. But again, I didn't hate this series.
No, I'm with you. I'm actually just a hair higher than you at 3.75 on this one. I do think that EXO issue was a bit stronger. Obviously, that one was at 4, and I'm coming, down a little bit to 3.75. But I think I enjoyed this a lot more than a lot of other people. But it's also because I'm willing to say, no, it didn't live up to this set of expectations. But if I apply this set of expectations, then I can have a good time reading it. And I think that, you know, I'm not trying to invalidate anybody else's feelings on this. I just feel like there's more than one way to look at it. And if you're stuck at only looking at it one way, then you're dooming yourself to not being able to enjoy something that you could enjoy quite a bit. Um,
Well, and I feel
you
like that's
know,
kind of how I felt a little bit with Exo Manowar, where I was kind of like, oh, the first issue stinks. I'm not gonna like this. And even like seeing like a lot of other opinions online where people are like, I just don't like it. But I did. I just liked it. It ended up being a pretty relevant story to me at least. So regardless of how Eric or I feel about books, I mean, I would hope people don't sit there and say like, well, these guys like it. I have to like it. Why don't I like it? No, just
oh yeah,
feel how
no,
you want to feel. Feel how you want to feel. Feel like how, like if you spend $4 on this shit, or if you're spending like $50 on the variant for it, or whatever you're buying, like enjoy what you're reading.
yeah. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Yeah. I just think that you know we each as individuals get to choose how we experience the things that we experience. And you can choose to only look at the things that you didn't enjoy about this book, or you can choose to say, yes, these are things I didn't enjoy, and set that aside and focus on the things that you can enjoy. And that's my choice, is the way that I'm going to look at it. Like I said, everybody else is free to make their own. But to me, yes, it does have a lot of problems. There are a lot of issues, but looking at it as far as like, you know, more of a fluff perspective, the shit that happens in this book is fucking crazy. Um,
I
it was,
still don't. As I say, I still don't think that this would be a great book if you didn't read Valiant and you're like, oh, I'm gonna jump in on their big event. I think you'd just be like, what the fuck is this?
yeah, this shit's fucking crazy. I think that you could still come away
Makes
with that.
no sense. Like,
Especially since if you come to Valiant brand new into Harbinger Wars 2, you're not going to know what expectations to have, and you're not going to be worried about, oh, they didn't tie this storyline in, or that thread was left unexplored, because you don't know any of that stuff, and you can come into this book and be like, this is fucking crazy.
hopefully, though, if you did come into Harbinger Wars 2 as like your first Valiant book, at least you'd be like, damn, they've got like some banging art like on their books, man. Like, cause that's one thing I thought that has been great. I love Tomas Girolla's art. I love Renato Gaitis. Most of the covers look beautiful. I mean, it does present very well, visually. I
Yeah,
think I don't. I mean, and aside from like I think minor things like Buff Pete, you
yeah,
know, sometimes Tomas like his heads on characters have like the same facial expression a little bit.
yeah,
But holy shit! Like even like the first page of this book was beautiful, where it's like Art transforming into XO, and like I was saying before, like I thought like Livewire's mech, that whole fight looks so cool. So yeah, one thing I do want to throw out real quick, I think it's great that like Jason and Sean did have like views that were different from ours. We like to have discussions with people. We're not looking for an echo chamber here. Like it's cool if you agree with us. It's cool if you don't though. I mean, like I like hearing that kind of like no, like we this is our point of view. This is what we think. I like hearing that from people. We don't get to hear that too much on like our Facebook page and never see it on Twitter. Our Twitter interactions are very minor. It's basically me and Jason. But I'm glad that like they have enough passion about this, at least to be like, no, this is what I think about it. Going forward, these are my feelings on Livewire or the event. So thanks to you guys for like at least expressing that because I appreciate it.
yeah. I want to actually say the same thing. Anybody that wants to come and interact with us, because we do these live on YouTube, there's that option to talk to us through the YouTube live chat, and I'm reading it while we're going over everything. So if you have a different perspective on things, we will definitely address it and talk about our opinions as much as we possibly can. So
Yeah,
yeah. One thing that Jason mentioned, he said Tama was his favorite character in Harbinger Wars 2 because she was always in the right. And yeah, that's true that Tama never wavers, really. I mean, Tama is very much like, I'm going to do the right thing. And this is, that's the only choice that there is. And she continuously did the right thing.
I'm trying to think like how much anyone else has written her than Kent, but Kent has such a great voice and usage of her like in everything. I just think she's such a great character. To me, like she's like one of the strongest characters that Matt Kent writes. She's just so likable,
Yeah,
and
didn't
even
he create her in the Valiant?
in the Valiant, yeah. So I always just like that would be like a great like mini like something with her would be just great again from him. Like
Yeah.
if it wraps up or if he gets the opportunity to throw like a mini series or a one shot, that would be like another great one, I think, because she is an awesome character when
Dude, you know what would be cool to see whenever this whole thing with Ninjak and Galad wraps up? If Galad is back after that story is done, it would be really, really cool to see a book with Galad and Tama. Sean's saying that nobody's written Tama other than Kent, so I think that's probably correct.
yeah, and that's great. And you know what though, like when they do get Glad back, it would make a lot of sense if he was like back with her, teaching her to hone her ways as her like protector and things like that. Like we need more of that. We didn't get a lot of it.
No,
Galad doesn't have a great history with the Geomasters, it seems like, but this
I
could
just
be the
think it would be a really cool story to see him come back and try to be like this father figure for her, like he was in Book of Death, and then her be like, "Look, man, I've gone through all this stuff while you've been dealing with your own thing," and then her be able to, just for the two of them to bounce off of each other. I think it would make a really good book.
so a correction. Venditti wrote her in Book of Death, so
Oh, that's true.
she's pretty active in that miniseries. But most of the time, though, it is Kent, and
Yeah.
Kent, it's one of the best things he does in the Valiant universe is anything with Tama. Tama's awesome.
Well, I mean, like that's the
I don't
cool
think
thing though about yeah, he's got all this divinity and eternity stuff. I mean, he's really added a lot to the Valiant universe, and that's one of the things I've talked about with Jeff Lemire. And obviously, Lemire's stuff was kind of limited to just his Bloodshot stuff, but I think that he added a lot to the Bloodshot mythos and thereby to the Valiant universe. And I think Kent has done that. Venditti also obviously did that with his whole Exo run and his Book of Death and Wrath of the Eternal Warrior. And I think that what's exciting to me is that we're at this moment where new blood is coming into the Valiant universe, and people like Christos Gage, Andy Diggle, Vita Ayala, and Nadler and Thompson. Like all these people are coming in and having the same opportunity because as much as we've had, 6 years of stories or whatever, there's still a lot of unexplored territory. And if these new creative minds come in, they can pick up anywhere and explore all this new territory. And I think give us some amazing stories and change the Valiant universe into something, different, but still just as cool as it's ever been.
I agree with that. I just hope that one of those guys is like, I see a Harbinger ongoing. I see Archer and Armstrong. Those are the guys I want to write. Like I do think at some point I want to see a little bit more of the core characters coming back. But to take a page out of your book, I do think like for the most part, it's a good time to be a fan of Valiant. I do think that like a lot of the books that are out right now are great, man. I mean, Exo Manowar was my least favorite book for a long time. I really enjoyed the storyline. So I mean, like I would probably say like my least favorite thing lately has probably been Harbinger Wars 2, and I like it, but I like everything else more. I mean, Ninjak's the best. Shadowman is awesome. Quantum and Woody have been good.
Yep.
Uh, you know, maybe actually, no, I'll take that back. Valiant High has maybe been the book that I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, and it's
Yeah.
okay. I read it like a long time ago. I don't need it again. So
Um, the other thing, talking about awesome things coming, that are happening in the Valiant universe and reasons to be a fan or reasons to enjoy being a fan. Um, the I actually read the physical copy of Exo Manowar 18, and in it is a preview for Faith Dreamside, and it's Jody Hauser back, MJ Kim on art, and it is perfect Faith. It is such perfect Faith. And I'm not going to say Faith is my favorite character. I love Livewire, Exo, obviously Bloodshot, Ninjak, Galad, all these awesome, epic, badass characters willing to, make the tough decisions. Livewire is a very different character, and but I love when she's done well. And I honestly, even just from the whatever it was, like 5 or 6 pages of preview that they put in the back of that EXO issue, I am totally convinced that this next Faith story is going to be an awesome Faith story.
that's cool to hear because I do know that we've had conversations where it's like you'll like the book, like you've liked the issues of Faith that come out, but you're like it's not my favorite character. They're not the kind of stories that really like are targeted at me. But I do find a way to enjoy them. So it's good to hear that like you feel that strong about it. Like I know that's like I've been looking forward to like the books that got announced. I don't know like where I would rank them all now with where the universe is at. I think like the Livewire one was maybe like my top favorite thing I was looking forward to. But I'm excited for more Jodie Hauser just because like she's another person who's written for Valiant for a while. I'm glad that she still feels the need to stay here with us because it
Yeah,
seems like everybody else is just, I mean, she's got a bunch of work everywhere. She's got work at Marvel and DC, but she's like, I still want to do Faith. I wish Venditti would come back like in the worst way
yeah.
because it's like
Dysart
Exo,
too.
yeah. Well, and we'll get more Dice Art,
Life and
I
Death.
I feel like we'll get more Fred Van Lente at some point too. Like he doesn't have any like qualms against working here. But to me, like for people who would do like a lot of work, I don't think Dice Heart will do much after his Toyo series wraps up.
Sure.
But but like to me, like Van Lente and Venditti, those are guys that have it in them to do like 12, 24 issues. I'd love to see that again from either of them.
Yeah. Preferably both.
Yeah.
So next week, I don't know if it's worth having an episode. I think the only thing coming out is the Valiant High trade.
Well, we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. If that's all that we have, there's probably not enough stuff outside of comics that Eric and I are interested in to do an episode. So we'll see.
We might just give ourselves another week to try to prepare for a badass episode 100.
Yeah. Or at least an awesome 97.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks again everybody hanging out with us. Um, at the very least, if you haven't enjoyed Harbinger Wars 2, at least we've been able to have a really good conversation about it. I think that like we talked about with this Exo Manowar arc, I think that this is a good spot for this run, and I hope that it continues moving in a direction that I'm enjoying. And I'm really excited to see what comes next with the aftermath issue, and then what comes out of that. Whatever is going to be happening with Exo, and then we obviously have other amazing books coming up with, or still going on with Ninjak and Shadow Man, and so on and so forth. So, but yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks a ton to Jason and Sean, especially for interacting with us on this episode. I know there were a couple other people in the chat here and there. Um, God, William Pace was in there, I know, at least for a little bit. And yeah, so appreciate everybody hanging out with us and everybody watching or listening after the fact. But we are, yeah, I like eggs too, Sean. We're gonna we're gonna be signing off for the night. I'm Eric Baumgart,
I'm Josh Rathbun.
and I hope you all have a great week. And we hope to see you next time on episode 97, when we hopefully will have something better than Valiant High to talk about.
Hashtag stay valiant.